The moment it happened, the room seemed to tilt, like the floor had forgotten how to stay steady. I was standing near the back of a quiet suburban house in Ohio, surrounded by the stale smell of old furniture and unspoken grudges, when my ex-wife's mother leaned closer to me with a knowing smirk that didn't belong in a place like that. Her eyes held something unsettling, and when she whispered a few words meant only for me, my body locked up, every muscle frozen between anger, shame, and disbelief. I hadn't expected anything like that on a day already heavy with memories, and in that instant, the past rushed back so hard it stole my breath. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that come from the broken places of real life, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. My name is Michael Turner, and I never imagined I'd find myself back in my ex-wife's childhood home 3 years after the divorce. The house sat on a quiet street outside Columbus, its white paint peeling like it was tired of pretending everything was fine. I was there because of unfinished business, the kind you can't ignore no matter how badly you want to. My ex-wife Rachel and I had ended things in a storm of misunderstandings, grief, and mistakes we both carried. What remained between us was not love anymore, but responsibility, shared history, and a son named Caleb, who deserved better than the silence we had built around ourselves. Rachel had passed away suddenly a few months earlier, leaving behind questions no one wanted to ask out loud. Her mother, Margaret, had called me after years of barely speaking, insisting there were things I needed to see, things Rachel had left behind that belonged to me and Caleb. I almost said no. Every instinct told me to stay away, but something heavier than pride pulled me back, something that felt like unfinished prayer. Walking into that house was like stepping into a photograph that had faded but refused to disappear. Family pictures lined the walls, frozen smiles that mocked how complicated things had become. Margaret moved slowly, her presence sharp and observant, watching me the way someone watches a man they never quite forgave. She had never liked me, not even when Rachel and I were newly married and hopeful. To her, I was always the man who took her daughter away and then failed to keep her safe. As we sorted through boxes in the living room, the weight of everything I'd lost pressed down on me. I thought about the nights Rachel and I used to talk about faith and forgiveness, about how we believed God could mend even the worst fractures if we let him. Somewhere along the way, we stopped letting him. Pride grew louder than prayer, and love turned into careful distance. Margaret's smirk came without warning. It wasn't kind or playful. It was the look of someone holding a secret too long. When she leaned toward me and whispered, asking if I wanted a look, my heart pounded like I was about to be accused of something I didn't know how to defend. I froze because I expected cruelty, blame, maybe even an insult that would confirm everything I feared she thought about me. Instead, she led me down a narrow hallway to a small room at the back of the house. Inside was an old desk covered in dust and a wooden box I had never seen before. Margaret's hands trembled slightly as she opened it, revealing letters, journals, and photographs carefully wrapped in cloth. This wasn't a trap, it was something else entirely. What I saw changed the way I understood my past. The letters were written in Rachel's familiar handwriting, dated during the final year of our marriage. As I read, my chest tightened. They were confessions, prayers written on paper, words she had never had the courage to say out loud. Rachel wrote about her fears, her regrets, and her deep belief that our marriage could have been saved if she had been braver, more honest about the pain she carried. She wrote about me, too, not as a villain, but as a flawed man she still loved, someone she believed God had placed in her life for a reason. Margaret watched me closely as tears slipped down my face. Her smirk faded, replaced by something softer, something that looked like exhaustion mixed with relief. In that moment, I realized she hadn't whispered those words to hurt me. She had whispered them because she had been carrying this alone, unsure whether to reveal it or let bitterness win. The hardest challenge wasn't reading Rachel's words. It was forgiving myself for all the moments I thought walking away was easier than fighting for something sacred. I had spent years believing I was the problem, that maybe I deserved the loneliness that followed the divorce. Those letters didn't erase my mistakes, but they reframed them through grace. Over the next few hours, the tension in that house shifted. Margaret and I talked without accusation hanging between us. We spoke about Caleb, about how much Rachel loved him, about faith that doesn't always make sense, but still shows up when you least expect it. For the first time, Margaret didn't look at me like an enemy. She looked at me like a man who had suffered the same loss she had. Leaving that house, I felt lighter, not because the pain was gone, but because it finally had meaning. I took the box home and shared parts of it with Caleb in ways a child could understand. I told him his mother believed in forgiveness and hope, and that love doesn't disappear just because people fail. Life didn't magically improve overnight. Healing never works that way. But something inside me shifted. I returned to church after years away, not because I felt worthy, but because I knew I needed grace more than ever. I started volunteering, listening to others who carried regret like a second skin. Slowly, purpose replaced bitterness. Just before this story ends, take a moment to comment below and share what forgiveness or second chances mean to you. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even broken relationships can leave behind seeds of healing, please like, share, and engage with this video. Your support helps keep stories of hope alive for others who may be struggling in silence. Sometimes the moments that freeze us are the same ones that set us free. I walked into that house expecting judgment, and walked out carrying peace I thought I'd lost forever, not because the past was rewritten, but because I finally understood that grace often arrives through the people we least expect, in whispers that change everything.